Welcome to the Creative Chats Podcast with Mike Brennan. Hey, welcome friends to another episode of Creative Chats. I'm your host, Mike Brennan, and I would love to connect with you. You can head on over to my website, which is white-knuckling.me, and over there you'll see all sorts of resources created with you in mind, because my mission is really to help you reconnect with yourself through creativity. Maybe you're somebody who has felt like you have lost a piece of yourself because at one time in your life, you did that creative thing. And then life started lifing, right? Things get put on a shelf. There's other demands, responsibilities, or maybe you use your creativity in service to everybody else but yourself. And this is a story that is very common, and it's been my story as well in the past. And so I'm creating spaces like this to be able to have us gather and come around stories and process and intention with showing up for our creativity and for ourselves. And so speaking of stories, I want to share with you a story this week that I don't think I've ever shared here. And maybe if I did, it was in passing. And it's with the idea behind it that, sometimes we find ourselves in places where we get frustrated pretty easily because we think what we should be experiencing, what we should be able to do as far as maybe a capacity in some task or some creative endeavor, it's not turning out the way that we thought it would or should. And so we can find ourselves getting frustrated and trying all the more to grab the reins and be in control and be in this place where we just white knuckle it. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, have you ever done that? I know I certainly have, more often than I care to admit. But the story I want to share with you today is actually about an experience I had with my kids. Now, I have two daughters, and today they're in their 20s. And when they were younger, we would like to go and do all sorts of things with them, just give them some experiences. And one of the things that I did often with them was to take them bowling, because I thought this is a good family activity. We can go, we can have some fun. There's usually some flashy graphics or interface in the bowling alley. I don't need to keep score, which is great because, let's be real. I mean, I'm an artist, not a mathematician, right? So we would go and we would find a ball that would be appropriate in the weight and maybe one that was a color that somebody particularly liked. And we would get our shoes and we would go to the lane that we were assigned, and we would punch in names, sometimes not even like our real names. And it was all part of the experience. And one day I noticed that as I was attempting to bowl with my kids, I was getting a little frustrated because I knew that I could do so much better than I was doing in that moment. And I'm not talking about trying to decimate my kids, right? I'm not talking about playing so that I'm playing to win. I'm just saying I was frustrated in my lack of ability in that moment because I'm I know I can do better than this. I know I have done better than this. And before I had kids, I was in a season where, I was then with my dating my wife at the time, and we would go bowling as part of an activity and an outing. And we enjoyed that. We would also do that with some other people. And so I had these memories. Truth be told, I even had my own ball and pair of shoes that I hadn't used in some time, and it was starting to show wear. But anyway, I'm standing there attempting to bowl, knowing in my mind that I can do better than what the results are showing. I'm trying to visualize it. I'm trying to do all those things that people tell you to do, right? I'm taking my time, and I'm noticing my posture is tightening, and I'm noticing that I'm just feeling tense. And of course, when you're in that mode, you're going to do poorly because you're too wound up, you're too tense, you're too much trying to control things. And I did this for a few rounds, and then I thought to myself, this is not working at all. This is pretty ridiculous. And I was like, this isn't actually fun either. And this game is supposed to be fun. I'm supposed to be having fun with my kids. I'm supposed to be having an enjoyable experience, making new memories. And instead, I'm getting kind of grumpy and I'm tense and frustrated. And I made a decision in that moment that said, I want to have a different experience. I want to show up differently. And I want to create some memories that perhaps would be lasting and, dare I say, fun. So, what I decided to do was I was waiting for one of my kids to finish bowling. And then they were like, Dad, it's your turn. And so I took that as the opportunity to bend down and I rolled up one of my pant legs. I cuffed it and it was pretty high and it was just one leg. And they looked at me very strangely, like, what are you doing? And what I did then was I stood up, walked over, grabbed my ball, and proceeded to do this really spastic little dance. I mean, if you've ever watched the Flintstones, and you remember Fred Flintstone kind of like doing that little tippy toe pinky dance and then releasing the ball. It was not quite that, but it was like that was what was in my mind of like, I'm just going to embrace being ridiculous right now because it's the opposite end of the spectrum of trying to be so in control. And so I stood up, I danced up there, I did this little whatever twirl, and then I let go of the ball. And lo and behold, as the ball raced down the lane, I hit all the pins. I got a strike. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And I was wondering, I wonder if I can do that again. And so I continued to do that and embrace this. And in that moment, my kids are like embarrassed, but they're also laughing. And by the way, I continued to do this well into when they were teenagers and would roll their eyes and feel completely embarrassed. And then I got the joy of like embarrassing my kids in public. So there's those memories too. And anyway, in that moment, there was an alter ego that was born. And that alter ego, his name is Cuffy, because I had cuffed my pant leg. So Cuffy comes out when there's a situation that I realize I'm trying to control too much. I'm being too tense. And this remained in the land of bowling for a long time. And what would happen is year after year, I'd be like, okay, Cuffy's coming out. And like, if I started doing poorly with the one pant leg, I'd try two pant legs. I'd try the opposite leg. And then they would get frustrated because they'd see I started doing better. And then they're like, well, maybe we should try and cuff our pant leg. And so then they tried to do it. And it became this fun and funny experience. And all with this alter ego of mine called Cuffy. And we would actually put Cuffy in the name on the scoreboard even after a little while because they knew that Cuffy's going to come out to play if we're out bowling. So this alter ego identity has been with me for some time. And I started to think about it in terms of where else can Cuffy show up? Now, mind you, even as recent as a couple of years ago, I was out with some friends and I was out at an event and it was kind of an after party thing where we all went bowling. And I'm like, Cuffy's coming out to play. And these people have no idea what to expect. They don't know that they're going to experience another side of me and experience they did. And what ended up happening is they thought it was hysterical. And they would, again, we created some memories and laughter. And then it spawned into this whole other thing of people going like, man, I got ideas for Cuffy. I think Cuffy should have a book. I think Cuffy should have a cartoon series. I think Cuffy should have, it became this big thing that everyone started to contribute to and like dream about and laugh about. Because underneath it all, I think everybody understood that when you're feeling the pressure and you're feeling like you need to be perfect and you're leaning into that heavy, and things don't improve, they actually get worse. We know that experience and don't like that experience. And what rises up in us is, how can I have a different experience in this moment? How can I actually start to, quote, win in this moment instead of feeling tense, not having fun, not enjoying what it is that I'm doing, and beating myself up in the process? I think every single one of us has had some situations like that. And especially when it comes to our creativity, we often have this gap between what it is that we see and what it is that we're actually able to execute. We compare ourselves to others, not only in the work that we do, but also maybe even in how far along somebody is in the journey. we think, well, they're doing this and they're succeeding. Why can't I do that too? How come I'm not seeing the results the same that they are? And what happens is our day 1 or 10 is something we're comparing to their day 100 or 1000. And of course, it's not going to look the same. Of course, we're not going to have the same experience or outcome. And we're not comparing fairly. And we shouldn't compare at all, to be honest, because we all have our own lane to stay in. So Cuffy, more recently, came to play again. This time, I was out with a group of people from my church and didn't know them terribly well, but I was invited to play pickleball. And if you're somebody who's in the pickleball rage of all things, I mean, God bless you, but it's that's got a math all of its own as well, the scorekeeping there. And I was like, again, as long as somebody else is dealing with scorekeeping and I can just kind of show up and figure this game out, then cool. I'm willing to play. So I showed up and I started to play, and I noticed again there was that familiar sense of, man, I am sucking, and I'm getting frustrated, and it's not like anybody's looking at me or expecting me because it was the first time I was playing, but I had this expectation of myself that I should be showing up differently, that I should have a different experience, that I should be enjoying this and not, again, just so tense. And so I thought, what if Cuffy comes out while I'm playing pickleball? And there I went. I rolled up my cuff and started to make some wild, grand gestures before serving and being really physical in some comedic movements. And the people there started to laugh and they started to wonder what I was going to do next as well. And then again, I started to do pretty well. Now, it's not a formula for perfection every single time because you get tired after playing for a little bit, and then sometimes also you just have a bad time playing. The time I played after that, actually, I tried to bring Cuffy out, and it was extremely hot. This was an outdoor court, and I was just kind of miserable with the weather. And then I also ended up tripping, falling backwards, which was its own sight, I'm sure. And I thought to myself, Cuffy's not coming out today. It's kind of like if you've watched any of the Marvel movies and you've seen the Incredible Hulk, right? And Dr. Banner is like, Hulk, where are you? I need you. I need you to come out. And Hulk is like, no, I'm not coming out. I'm not coming out. It was that kind of thing. Cuffy was not coming out to play that day. But I say all this and share all this, yes, to be sharing a funny story and experience, but the lesson underneath there is to look for enjoyment in what you're doing and to recognize that when you're trying to control too much, you get too tense, you get too stiff, and you don't end up getting the results that you're desiring. As a matter of fact, you end up being probably further from them. And you have a frustrating experience in the midst of that. I think also about sometimes when I would be drawing and I was trying to render something more in a photorealistic style, which was what I was taught was something that was a goal to be reached. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's your style and that's what speaks to you and lights you up, great, awesome. I applaud that and say, go full on in. But for me, it was a frustrating experience. And what would happen is I'd realize after a while, I'm drawing very small and very hunched over and very tight and tense in my shoulders. And everything is trying to be these controlled movements and this precision that just, it kind of sucked the life out of the experience. And then I'd look at the end result and be like, I'm not even happy with where I landed on this. And so there was little there to go, hey, go and do this again next time and keep going down this trail. As a matter of fact, I realized that, and this took me many years and this journey of me creating something every single day, part of my daily creative habit that I talk about a lot. It was this embracing mess for me going, what if I leaned more into what felt more intuitive for me And it was splatter marks. It was loose lines. It was bold colors. It was this experience that was more free, even physically, when I was creating. It was larger movements. It wasn't this hunched over, tense, tight experience of being very controlled. And I'm not suggesting that there aren't times for precision, because there are. There are certain things that we don't want to be loose and messy and all over the place. I mean, if you had a doctor who was performing a surgery, you certainly would not want that doctor to be loose and kind of like, I don't know, we'll just kind of figure this out. We'll get in there and do some things and hope for the best. You want precision. You want someone who knows exactly what to do, exactly how to do it, and exactly how to achieve the results that are desired, the outcome that everyone needs. But what I am saying is that sometimes there are things where, it's not life and death in your hands, but understanding yourself in this process and giving yourself the gift of exhaling, of embracing imperfection, of leaning in and realizing maybe that's more of how I need to show up. Maybe that's something that takes the pressure off and creates a fun experience, one that I want to do again and again. Maybe it creates a story in the midst of you showing up like that for yourself and for others. And there are certain people in my life that I can just say, Cuffy, and immediately they'll smile and they'll say, hey, has Cuffy come out to play recently? And they want to know more stories. They want to know more experiences. And they're even wanting to contribute towards that. And so it's become something larger than me, even in that practice of going, I'm going to show up and intentionally be silly, intentionally not try to control so much and loosen up. And in the doing of that, the amazing thing is that I ended up getting much better results because I wasn't trying so hard. I wasn't trying to prove. I wasn't trying to white knuckle it. I wasn't pushing. I was relaxing. I was having fun. I was being in the moment, being fully present, and not allowing myself to be frustrated in that moment. This whole idea of recapturing this fun and this enjoyment and this sense of being childlike, honestly. I mean, here I am, a 50-year-old something man who is prancing around with a bowling ball in hand. Yes, it's quite a sight. And if you ever have the opportunity to go bowling with me, I promise that Cuffy will show up on the scene. But until that day, or if that day never comes, you'll have to just trust me that it's comical. It is. But it's also something that is freeing. It's freeing for me. And I think it also is freeing for the people around me, because they realize they don't have to show up white knuckling. They don't have to show up trying to be perfect. They don't have to have this fierce sense of competition in that moment where it's just push, win. And I know some people are wired that way, and some people have been trained that way since they were young kids, and that can be a hard thing to get out of. And some people may not want to get out of that, which I get, and that everybody, do your own thing. But what I am saying is, if you've been frustrated by trying to control too much, know that there's another way. Know that it's possible to make a different choice, to show up differently, and to even do something, take a chance where you're looking a little bit silly, or maybe a lot silly. And in the process of that, you get more comfortable with yourself, with what's happening in the moment, and maybe even bring a little levity and fun to the people around you. Make new memories and start something that is your own tradition doing that. These ideas are things that I explored actually in my book, Make Fun a Habit, which that's available on Amazon.com, Make Fun a Habit. And I explored this idea of, what if it was fun? What if fun wasn't a reward at the end of a process, but what if it was part of the process? What would it look like for us to embrace moments that maybe normally would slip right on by because we're not paying attention or because we're looking elsewhere, preoccupied, and actually embrace those things and have a different experience? And the way that I wrote that book was 30 short chapters with a big idea and then a story from my own life, and then some exercises and questions for you to apply it to your own life. And so that's a resource that's there if you feel like you want to lean into that, if you feel like what I've been talking about is really hitting you where you're at, and you feel like I need a little more fun in my life. I need to not be so um, earnest in my perfection, and I want to have a better experience. I want to try something different so I can get a different result. Then that resource is there for you. And I would love for you to connect with that book and connect with me and say, hey, this is something that in this particular moment in my life, I want to embrace. I want to embrace my inner Cuffy. um, and suddenly I'm having visions of like people with one cuffed pant leg all around the world, the army of Cuffy. But listen, I'm the only true Cuffy here. Okay, so hands off. But in all seriousness, I hope that this challenges your thinking, your process, your experience, so that you start to do some things differently. You start to have new experiences. You start to relax more into your own body. You stop beating yourself up with the voice of perfectionism again and again. And that as a result, you're able to show up differently in this world for yourself, for the people around you, that it impacts your work, your creativity, your ideas, your relationships, that who knows what may happen as a result. And all it takes is for you to make a decision to try something new and then see what happens. Lean into it. Have some fun with it. Get more people around you who maybe will do it with you. And maybe your entire way of processing and your entire approach to things might shift. It's worth a shot, especially if you've been frustrated and stuck in a place where you're feeling disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your creativity, and longing for that experience that is more fully alive, more enjoyment, and not simply just using your creativity only in service to others, where it's all about their projects, all about their deadlines, and somebody else determining how you get to show up, when you show up, what that looks like, but that you have a place that is just yours, that no one else can touch because you've identified it and you stand in that and you use that how you want to. Creativity is your ally, your friend, your power. And this is all part of it. Willing to be silly, willing to show up and do something different, willing to fight the voice of perfectionism. So I hope this has been encouraging to you today. And if you've been just tuning in now, this podcast has been going for quite some time, about 6 years, and I have had a pause, and I am making my way back. And some of that will still be figured out as I go. It probably will not be an every week thing. It may be an every other week episode dropping. But I am already lining up some more conversations to come with some people who are going to share their stories, their experiences, and their process. I love being curious, sitting down with people and asking them, tell me more about how you got to where you are today. Because I think something along in your journey, something in your story will leap out and speak to us, regardless if our creative exercises and endeavors are polar opposites. I know that it's happened again and again, where perhaps I'm speaking to somebody who's a dancer or a baker or somebody who's highly organized in creating systems as an entrepreneur. and somebody else who was like, that's not my thing. That's not my story. That's not my experience. But there's something that they share that is kind of like a universal truth, or something that is a principle that they can say, I'm going to take that out of that person's context and overlay it onto mine. And I think that's really helpful. I think that's going to help me engage with myself, with my creativity, and the things I want to do and put out into this world. And so realizing that we're not alone in the things that we experience. Many times we feel that way. But when we have these conversations and people are real enough to share the good and the bad, the struggles as well as the successes, we see that really we're not so different after all. The context of the story, the details might be different, but that same, I'm here to do something with this time that I have on this planet. I want to create and make things that actually make a difference and serve the people around me. And while doing that, I get to feel fully alive and doing the things that I know are part of my DNA. So that's what this place is. That's what it's been. That's what it's going to continue to be, even if some things shift and change a little bit. And it's always my pleasure to be able to come alongside you and say, hey, I am a resource for you. I am a creative guide who can help you on this journey and come alongside, encourage you, give you some practical and specific things. And if you're on a team and you want me to come in and speak with your team or organization, or speak at an event perhaps that you are a part of, it would be my honor to be able to do that and share my years of experience and insights, and all with leaning in to help you reconnect with yourself through creativity. I would love for you to go and live a colorful life. That's really what my heart is about. And I look to model that and do that first and foremost so that I can say, I'm not just asking you to do something that I haven't done myself or I'm not doing. I live it. It's a practice. Creativity is a daily practice for me. That's why it's the daily creative habit. It shows up in different ways, but every day I get an opportunity to lean in and do something creative and live fully alive. Let it affect the work that I do and the relationships I have and the experiences I have. And that's not to say that there aren't things that are pitfalls and things that are still in process, and we're always going to have those things as long as we're on this planet. And it's really, what do we do in the face of that? Can we even use our creativity to problem solve and to live a bigger life, have a fuller, richer, colorful experience? That's my hope and wish for you. I want to thank you for tuning in this week. And until next time, go create something. Thanks for listening today. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe, leave a rating and a review. It really helps this podcast be seen and heard by others.